Good day, everyone, and welcome back to Day 2 of the Process Mining and Intelligence Digital Summit. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to interact with yet, my name is Rochelle Hood, and I serve as SSON's Global Head of Customer Analytics and Research, and it's been my real pleasure to host this conference for the last 2 days. Just to bring into perspective as we open up Day 2, this is our first time dedicating a 2-day digital event to process mining. Some of you may know at a lot of our events around the world, we do have process mining sessions, process mining tracks, but we have actually pulled this out to its own 2-day event. So we're absolutely delighted that you could be a part of our inaugural digital conference on this topic. Before I get started and introduce our chairman, who's going to give us some opening remarks and then introduce today's session, just wanted to highlight today's agenda. We have 3 sessions for you today. This particular session will be followed by one that's called Sustainable Improvement Culture. So that one's really going to focus quite a bit on we're going to hear a lot about the tools, but if you don't have a culture to keep that continuous improvement going and that drive to make those changes stick, sometimes they just go away. So that will be the session following this one. And then after that, we have a very special treat for you. We're going to have a fireside chat with our chairman. So we're going to look at the market as a whole, what's the significance of process mining, where is it going, what is changing, why do you need to pay attention to it, a bit of a fireside exchange from that. Then from immediately following that, and then the chairman and I will have a review of the highlights from the last 2 days. So if you missed any of the sessions, that's definitely a good one to connect into because I'll give you some summaries and some key takeaways. And then from a housekeeping perspective, as a reminder, tomorrow you're going to be receiving an email that will give you a link to the recordings for all the sessions so you can catch up on any of the ones that you missed. But also each of those sessions, nearly every single session will include some type of resource, ebooks, white papers, really good materials as you're both educating your teams and your industry colleagues, as well as putting business cases together and so much more. Be sure to leverage those widely and often, as well as the recordings. It's a great way to engage your colleagues in these discussions, to share the education and information with them. So we hope that you'll do that. So with those logistics out of the way, let me welcome back to the digital stage Jan-Philip Thompson, who is with Celonis. We're delighted to have him as our chairman once again for Day 2. Jan-Philip, over to you.
So thank you very much. Welcome to the second day of Process Mining and Intelligent Conference. And first of all, thank you, Rochelle, for organizing this great event. So my name is Jan-Philip Thompson. I'm with Celonis. And I now have the opportunity to introduce this first session of the day on how process mining can help you achieve frictionless finance in shared service organizations. And in this session, we have one of our long-standing Celonis customers, Jan Fuhr from Fresenius Kabi, presenting what they were able to achieve with process mining. So I'm very excited about that. And before we jump into that, I want to briefly recap on what is actually Celonis' mission statement as well. So what is it that we're trying to do with process mining? And that is, in its essence, we want to turn processes into extraordinary experiences for everyone. And so that means like whether you're working in accounting and matching invoices, whether you're a supplier that is waiting to be paid, whether you're a customer paying your supplier, or an employee waiting for expenses to be reimbursed. So no matter in which part of the shared service organization you sit, ultimately the processes touch everybody, not only within the shared service center, but for the entire ecosystem, right? And so at the same time, this also has a very tangible effect, right? So the extraordinary experience also has a very tangible effect, and I want to talk briefly about that. So ultimately, right, you want to use process mining also to achieve a certain business outcome, right, which is connected to those extraordinary experiences. So if we look at some of those outcomes in finance, right, so if we look at 1.3 trillion euros of working capital that is tied up globally, right, with process mining, that will help you free up some of that working capital. At the same time, process mining is leveraged to identify and eliminate manual work in identifying inefficiencies, rework, eliminating those, making the invoice processing touchless, for example, or as touchless as possible. Or at the same time, making sure that certain guardrails in terms of risk and compliance are not crossed as well, right? So there, we see that 97% of CFOs are concerned about fraud risks around improper internal compliance. So again, that's something that process mining can be leveraged for. So, it's always tied to business outcomes. These are just some examples within the finance space. There are others, of course. So how do we help companies do that? And so, as you know, right, all shared service center processes are supported by a source system, right? And it can be different ones. So there's an SAP system, Oracle, Coupa, etc. And everything users are doing in those systems generates data, right? So every creation of an invoice, every modification of it, every PO, all of those things. We call those digital footprints. And Celonis basically connects to those systems and then extracts that data and then gives sense to it, gives meaning to it, and then allows you to uncover inefficiencies and the root causes. So some examples that you see here, right? So credit blocks, delivery blocks in place, or what is manual rework, where is manual rework occurring, quantity, price changes when processing POs, manual three-way matches in invoicing, all these things that I'm sure you are familiar with. But now you actually have a data-driven way to uncover those inefficiencies and where you can actually start improving them. And this is actually the next step, and that's very important, and we'll also get to that later, is how to actually take out that friction, right? So one part is discovering it, but the other is how can you enhance your process? How can you improve your process? And I think this is very important. So this is where also the Celonis technology comes in, where our ecosystem comes in. So how do you get guided from that insight to action and ultimately to achieving a business outcome? So because a frictionless process, as we said, right, creates financial value, and that can be in the form of optimized working capital, high productivity, or compliance confidence, as some examples. And so the Celonis customers, and we have a customer story of Fresenius now. Some other examples that I just want to share with you briefly as well is, if we look at Chart Industries based out of the U.S., they were able to identify and then avoid some late payments and missed cash discounts, right, through faster invoice processing, being able to generate $3 million in savings. We have another example of Siemens in finance. We talk about finance productivity. So being able to save $15 million annually by removing 10 million manual touches and thereby making their operations way leaner, right? And another example is really making sure that POs that are being processed are perfect. So another example is Vodafone that went up from 73% perfect PO rate to a 96% perfect PO rate. So really complying with the ideal to be process model. So these are some interesting examples. And how do customers do that? And I want to basically introduce this important methodology to achieving value realization to get to those business outcomes, right? Because there are actually several steps involved. And let me summarize those briefly. Ultimately, in order to achieve an outcome like optimizing DPO and working capital, you need to look out for role-specific capabilities that will enable a rapid adoption and success within the organization. And it actually starts with a phase that we call Connect. So this is mainly targeted at a data engineer, which is really, so what are the source systems involved in the process, and being able to extract those digital footprints from there. We talk about the Discover phase. This is really the analyst's work, of identifying inefficiencies and their root causes, proposing measures of enhancement. Then comes the actual enhanced part, and as well as, of course, and this is also an important one, monitoring progress. So being able to align with executives and managers and getting their buy-in. So this is basically, to sum it up, the Connect piece, connecting to source systems, transform data, and enable real-time connection. The Discover piece, capturing digital footprints, visualizing and understanding processes and root causes. We see the enhanced part. So there we actually talk about suggesting intelligent actions, automating tasks, proactive recommendations, and the monitor piece are really tracking key metrics and benchmarks and conformance of the process. So I think, and this is the methodology that our customers follow, and that our technology enables our customers to follow as well. So the whole platform looks like this. To sum it up, we're looking at source systems right at the bottom. We extract those digital footprints. We use our process mining technology to transform that data. And then we have discover, enhance, and monitor methodology sitting on top of that. And ultimately, it's also about giving business context. So we have business applications that are focused on certain outcomes like working capital, on-time delivery, etc., that come prepackaged and that you can leverage and adjust to your needs. And of course, from those business applications, I think that's also important. So being able to trigger actions, so having the right context and being able to trigger actions that will ultimately then improve the work in the source systems. And so before passing over to Jan Fuhr from Fresenius, I also want to share briefly, so in light of these, this methodology, what is the trends that we're seeing in the market? And this is a very interesting survey that Gartner has done, actually, and that is, so which of the process mining types, if you think of discovering a process, conformance checking a process, enhancing a process, are actually being used? And so let me, for simplicity reasons, leave out the conformance piece. What we are seeing here is that discovery and enhance are having different trends. So basically, in 2020, Gartner's estimate, based on the responses, is that more companies will actually be focusing on enhancing processes with process mining than just discovering. That does not mean that discovery is becoming less important. It just means that more people are doing and focusing on enhancement. And I think that's a very, very interesting observation, and just shows that this focus on business outcomes is a very, very relevant one when introducing process mining to your organization, and really thinking about and aligning with your executives and managers and the business outcomes your organization wants to achieve. And so we have a perfect example for that. This is Fresenius Kabi, and with that, I will pass it over to Jan Fuhr, who will show you how they follow this methodology and what they achieve with it. Jan, over to you.
Thank you, JP, and also thank you, Raquel, for hosting the session, for having me in your web meeting here. Our today's presentation will be about how we achieved a stable cash discount at Fresenius Kabi with process mining, with the process mining technology, and also the Celonis Action Engine product. Just to go rough through the structure of the presentation, I will briefly summarize what we're doing at Fresenius Kabi. Afterwards, what are we doing with process mining, what is our journey, and then we will focus on the use case we are presenting today, which is the stabilization of the cash discount. And then on point 4, we have a really exciting thing what we're going to do. We're going to really jump in our system, seeing a little bit how does it look like in a real company environment, how we are using Celonis on a day-to-day basis, and finally we're going to wrap it up. All right, so for those ones who don't know Fresenius Kabi yet, or who don't know us, it is basically good not to know the company, because it means you're not chronically sick and don't need medication from us. In terms you need the medication, it's always good to know us, so we're doing basically everything which goes over the vein through your body, inside or outside, which could be nutrition, infusions, or other medicines we're giving the patients into their body, or blood that we're extracting from the body. So that is basically what we're doing, high quality and affordable products for the therapy and care of critical and chronically ill patients. Just to give you a little overview where we are based, so you can see that we're a pretty global player on the market, having around 140 locations spread around the whole globe. And it was not always like that. I mean, you can see on the left-hand side the growth of the company in terms of employees. That you see, we almost doubled our employees over the last 10 years, and really become a global player on the market, which is also shown in our sales figures, how the sales distribution was in 2008 and 2018. So no worries, I don't want to bother you with our sales shares or anything like that. I just want to show you that Fresenius Kabi was like 10 years ago still a very German European company, which turned into a truly international corporation, and which was not only beside of a strong organic growth, it was also because of the one or other acquisition we did over the last 10 years. And this is basically also one of the root causes how our process mining journey started. So how did it start? What you can see here is a Indian traffic chaos, which you will get if you buy other companies, having a lot of other companies joining your corporation. This is what happens to your processes. So it's not only sales, products, product pipelines you're buying by acquiring a new company. It is also you're buying their IT systems, their people, their processes. And if you do it a lot over the last 10 years, you will end up in an Indian traffic jam, completely unstructured, and a lot of chaos basically happening in your IT systems and in your processes. So just let's stick a little bit to the traffic. So what are you going to do, and what did Fresenius Kabi did back in 2014? We sit there together and thought about how can we structure our Indian traffic. And of course, the first logical thing you do is you try to provide a map. So what we did is starting to build up process houses, process maps, drawing process graphs, and that was basically, if we all think back around 10, 20 years of cars which had a navigation system, was really an awesome feature to have, which is more or less in the meantime everyone has a navigation system on the phone. Every car almost has the navigation system, which is now already like kind of standard. So also process maps or focusing on your processes is not only it's not the end of the story. So what would be the next valuable information beyond the process maps we can do? And basically what we're doing with process mining is nothing different like what Google is doing or what our navigation systems are doing today. So we simply, with process mining in Fresenius Kabi, add our traffic information to our process maps. So it's like we see where do we have construction works going on, where do we have roadblocks, which are busy roads, which roads are free to go, which are shortcuts we want to take, we do not want to take. It is quite similar to this map. And we're still not on the edge yet, right? So this is pretty cool to know how is the traffic situation or your current traffic situation. But you know that you might stuck in a traffic jam. So what would be the next level or the next advanced thing you could do is what you see in the morning. So beside the fact you can see that I was a little late this morning, is that my phone reminded me today of when I should leave, because not I checked the traffic on the traffic information. It's simply my phone that did the check for me. So this is basically what we're doing also at the moment with Celonis Action Engine, that we simply notify our business users when they should process in a faster way in order to make it on time. Like if there would be a traffic jam in the morning, my phone would tell me to leave 20 minutes earlier, or we tell our accountants, please process the invoice earlier in order to make it on time because we see a traffic jam coming. And that's basically a little bit how we started focusing from modeling and defining our processes to analyzing the process throughput times and process flows from our system based on the timestamps to where we are now, informing our accountants about how to behave in order to avoid process inefficiencies. And one really nice use case that we've been building up over this year is the stabilization of our cash discount. So this, what you see here on the left side of the screen, is basically how we used to analyze or monitor our cash discount so far. what you see is that we had a pretty high 6-digit lost cash discount back in 2017 and 18, and we've been simply monitoring it with aggregated data. So it is a classical business intelligence report that you're seeing here, like how much cash discount did I lost over the last month or over the last years, and divide, or let's say you see it month by month, right? So you can see a little bit the development, the trend, how it's going. Okay, August, maybe a lot of people are on vacation, but it's not really giving you the information about your process. Where, why, and when does my cash discount loss really happen? So what we did is, we simply need to understand where and when in the cash discount, where and when in the process are we losing our cash discount. So what you see here is the view in our Celonis. It is basically one of the standard components Celonis is offering, which is called the Process Variant Explorer, where you see on the left-hand side of the screen your process flow, and on the right-hand side you see how many process variants you're having. And you see there are quite a lot of process variants in terms of when we lost cash discount. So it is good always to focus on your most common variant where we lose the cash discount. You see it here that it simply starts, or that we here in that case lose very early the cash discount, and it is even before we capture the invoice in our system. So it's like the vendor sending out invoices late, and we miss the cash discount before we capture the invoice. What we see here is another process variant where we miss the cash discount a little later. So we captured the invoice in time, we changed the invoice, but before we posted the invoice, we simply passed the cash discount due date, which means it was processed too late. And of course, also at a later stage of the process, cash discount loss can happen. It is received on time, posted on time, but unfortunately, we forgot to book the goods received. So the invoice runs into a payment block, and we lose the cash discount because the invoice is still stuck on the payment block. And I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with Celonis or process mining so far, but what happens if you want to see all your data at once, everything together, you will end up like seeing this spaghetti diagram showing you 100% of your process where you lose the cash discount. And you all see that we can see nothing out of this picture. So the question is popping up, how can we summarize all those new valuable process flow information we're having? So what we did is we simply summarized all those process flow information and grouped it into different root cause clusters. So you see here six different reasons why we lost our cash discount based on the process flow information. So it really helps us to understand where in the process are we losing the cash discount, understand what could be root causes, and based on that, to identify the root causes, we can define very specific improvement measures for those single root causes and not just trying to fight over all the cash discount we're losing. So what I'm going to show next is basically we identify here, and these are our data, how we lost the cash discount since 2018, is a lot of cash discount, like half of it was lost because we processed the invoice too late, and another 20% was because we received the invoices too late. So how do we start with that one and prevent the late processing of cash discount invoices? And it's simply, we saw already the identification, so the invoice was changed on time, but the cash discount due date was passed before the invoice got posted. We sent out a notification, like we saw on the phone. We sent out a notification to our accountant saying like, hey, good morning, we identified 10 new cash discount relevant invoices. Please process them with a higher priority. The accountant clicks on it, and we simply see then the web browser is opening, the accountant sees all the information related to the invoice, can take the document number and process it with a higher priority. That's one case where we identified, okay, the 50% of the lost cash discount was caused by late processing, and that was basically our method, how we are fighting it. the next case was 20% of the cash discount was lost because we received the invoice too late. And also for that one, we're using Celonis process mining in our shared service center, identifying which invoices are clustered in that root cause. We can very simple analyze which vendors are causing this behavior or are behaving like that. And then it's quite simple thing to do. You simply take a business action based on the insights you get from your process mining analysis and call your vendors that are sending invoices too late. And you're just going to go explain them again how, excuse me, how you want to receive the invoices, what different invoice input channels you're having in order to make sure that you receive the invoices on time. All right, lots of talking, lots of slides. I would now simply like to jump over in a quick live demo and prove you that it's not only nice slides we can show, that it is really one of our systems that is working and is really showing you a little bit the effect of what we achieved by putting that different improvement measures on it. So just one remark, we needed to blur out a little our vendor names for privacy reasons, but more or less you should still see and get the concept for the insights. And I hope right now everyone can see my screen showing my email that the accountant is receiving in the morning, or I'm receiving the email as well, because I'm also interested in our lost cash discount, or which open invoices do we have for lost cash discount. And we see it here. Good morning, Jan. We detected 106 new signals, and the mail popped in this morning showing me which invoices are relevant for cash discount, which ones do I need to focus on. So I simply have that email. I hit the button and see here our Celonis instance, how it is looking like. We see all the different invoices. We see here how high is the cash discount value, and of course we have now 119 invoices we're seeing here. I do not want to start working on an invoice with a very low cash discount amount, so I simply go sort and check which are high cash discount invoices. And for instance, I would take that signal, how it is called, open it, see, okay, the cash discount for the invoice number 7043-209 is due in 7 days, and I need to process it with a higher priority. So what I'm going to do is simply copying the document number, which is here, go to our SAP system, and post the invoice immediately in order to ensure a realization of the cash discount. So this is basically how our accountants are notified, and we create like that the awareness that they should really work on those invoices with a higher priority. So let us talk now a little bit of, does it really work, or is it just like cool to notify your accountants? So what we're going to do now is jump into our analysis. The component on the left-hand side you've seen already that identifies where are we losing the cash discount. You see here our classification, like why are we losing the cash discount, and we see already that it's like really delayed processing was one of the major root causes why we lost it. And basically we saw already in the action engine how our plan was to fight it, to reduce it. So we go here and make a little bit of a time analysis in order to show you how it worked. And based on that graph, you see already why we call it stabilization of a cash discount, because you see the couple of last months how stable more or less the cash discount was compared to how it looked before. And as you've seen, like starting from March 2019, we have a quite stable cash discount realization ratio, about 75%, versus how it looked the year before. And what is really nice and easy to see now is, if we want to take a look on the lost cash discount we had overall, or before we introduced the action engine, we've seen it was like the really, really highest use case we had. So if we simply filter on the root case now and see how it developed, you can see very fast, okay, here we had some holiday issues, I assume, but you see very fast the moment on we introduced the action engine, how tremendously it dropped, how tremendously the root cause dropped from like being one of the major root cause back in the last year with more than like 60k euros lost a month to a quite stable around like 6 to 7k lost cash discount for that single root cause. So you see, by fighting very, very focused one single use case we have, we managed to improve the overall cash discount realization ratio, because that one was the highest root cause we had, and it had a really nice effect after implementing the action engine in our shared service center, and we can see it really that over the last couple of months we achieved a great stabilization of our cash discount. All right, so that's it from our live system. I'm going to stop the screen sharing. Hope everyone could see it. And we'll simply wrap up what we've seen today and also a little bit of what JP was speaking about. So that's all what we've seen, or what JP was talking about earlier in his opening words about it's all about discovering your process, enhancing and monitoring it. So to sum it up, either if you draw your process maps or you discover your processes with the variant explorer of Celonis process mining, it is also important to notify. Either your phone in the morning notifies you about the traffic jam, or your accountants are getting the notification about new cash discount signals. And of course, it's not only about discovering and enhancing, it is also about having always an eye on your traffic jams. So keep an eye on your development and monitor your success you achieved, your stabilization, and if it really keeps improving or if the enhancement measures did work out. All right, then that's from my side so far. I'm going to hand over now to Raquel now for the Q&A session.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And it was very interesting to see everything flow through there. So we appreciate having the inside look of exactly the way this application works inside of an enterprise business. So I appreciate you taking us the time to do that. So remind everybody to keep your questions coming in. You're going to use the box on the left-hand side of your screen to do that. But the first question is for you, Jan-Fjord, is to ask about the talent that you've developed either internally, or how have you recruited for the talent for people to work on this particular application, work using process mining? Did you find that your very experienced folks, perhaps those were good with Excel, were very good at this? Did you leverage a lot of your domain or process experts? Or tell a little bit about the people that on your team, or how you recruited that talent in order to build up these skills.
Okay, so if I got the question correctly, I think it is worth to mention that we really have a good, so I'm based in our Fresenius Kabi internally global IT and process department. So my task is to lead all process mining initiatives to build up the topic of process mining for the overall Fresenius Kabi company. So I'm not directly based in our shared service center, but I have a really, really close and good collaboration with my colleagues over there. And it was basically a really, really good start we had. Like we started back in 2018 to verify our process model, making sure all the data are correct, and already during that time you could see which people are really thrilled and into the topic and are interested in improving the process or identifying cool use cases of how we can save money or how we can improve the process. So it's not that much a question of roles or responsibilities, it's more like a question of people. So it's really during the first times you're showing an application like Celonis or the process mining technology, and then starting to verify people with your business process expert and people with having all the process knowledge, you see already that there will be people who are really also getting into the topic and having great process knowledge and also a good understanding of their process. And exactly those people then see immediately the value add and all the potential which hides behind all those numbers and figures.
All right, thank you so much for that. The next question that's come in is to ask, are there other areas in your shared services group, whether it's an AP or any other functional area, that you are looking to apply process mining to?
So at let's say on a long perspective, for sure. And currently we are really focused on accounts payable and purchase to pay. Yeah, that is true. So that's our main focus for now, and also for the next couple of months we are going to extend a lot of our existing KPIs and enhance them with a more deeper level of insights. So we will have a lot of fun in the accounts payable and purchase to pay area before we start taking a look on new use cases, which is also a good remark for everyone here in the web meeting. It is important to set the focus and not to start trying to generate a solution which suits all your processes at once. So it's really important to keep the focus and the people together and focus on the one thing to do and then grow over time.
Okay, thanks for that. Jan Philip, this question's for you. The question is related to, does this product work well for small and medium-sized companies, or do you really need greater scale in order to achieve ROI on the product?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. So what I've been observing across our customer base is that, for customers starting around 100 or 200 million in revenue, like that's where it really gets interesting. Now, of course, we also are looking at the smaller scale companies. Like, how can we help those? So we've actually introduced a free of charge version of our product that does process discovery. It's called Snap, Celonis Snap. And I can really encourage anyone who just wants to try it out and play around with it and import own event logs into it to discover processes, to really just log online and play around with it. But overall, what I'd say is we see not only large enterprises, but really small to medium-sized companies, 200 million euros and above, achieving a significant ROI out of it. And I think it also depends on what processes you're looking at. So especially for a small to medium-sized company, they would focus process mining on some on core processes in production and supply chain, but also in finance operations. Whereas then, when the larger the company, you'd be expanding into all kinds of areas as well. So customer service management, HR, and many others.
All right, thank you very much for that. The next question is for you again, Jan Pure. The question relates to data. There's a lot of understanding of whether or not your data needs to be in really good order. You need to have good governance and control over it before you get the benefits of process mining. How did your data look, and did you find that to be true?
So yeah, it's like all data and analytics projects you're doing, right? So you need to have a reliable data quality. But the good thing is no one wants to do a month-end closing based on your process mining data, right? So it is not about achieving 100% data quality. It is more or less like making the main issues of your process visible. Because if we compare what I showed in the beginning, a BI report, which maybe shows you how much cash discount did you lost by precise of a cent, which is also very good and important, process mining is really helping you to improve your business process. And it's not that much important whether you lost like a 100K and 1 cent, or a 100K and 2 cent in the end of the day. So yes, data quality is important. It is very important that you can visualize a correct process flow, but still to a certain stage. I would say not 80-20 is a suitable approach, but if you make it to a 99% data quality and accuracy, you're pretty much there already.
All right, thank you very much. The next question relates to training. So I'm going to ask both of you this question. And Jan-Philipp, I'm going to start with you. A lot of folks want to know, how do they really become proficient at this? Is there a university? Do you offer courses? How do people have a better understanding and get trained up? And then after that, Jan-Philipp, I'll come back to you and then talk about how did you approach training on the tool and training on process mining as a methodology as a whole. So Jan-Philipp, we'll start with you.
Okay. Yes. Excellent question. So, first of all, yes, we absolutely. If you ask about universities, etc., there's a large amount of collaboration that we do. So, really, how can you provide, the knowledge for around process excellence and improving processes today and tomorrow? So, we actually, work with 200 different universities very closely, and also you saw Will van der Aalst yesterday, right? So. As one example, 200 universities in 36 countries that we're working with, that impacting about 15,000 students and researchers within their universities. But on top of that, I think it is very important, and we at Celonis, have this belief that process mining is a technology that should be democratized, right? So one thing we've also done very recently is we have made available the Intelligent Business Cloud, so the Celonis product, training for free for everybody, right? So everybody in this conference and around the world can actually get access to a Celonis training. And it's also important to highlight, so no matter what role you're in, so whether you are, remember we mentioned before, whether you're actually more on the data engineering, data scientist side, whether you're an analyst, you're a business user, or a manager, right? And depending on the role, we have different tracks. They're all available free of charge. So I really encourage you to try it out and to spread the word.
Thank you. And Jan-Philipp, how did you guys approach training? Did you use some of these resources? Did you use some of your internal resources?
So no, basically, as Celonis headquarters is based in Germany, like I am, I had a great opportunity to visit a on-site training back in 2015 or 16, I guess, or it was 16, 17. So I think when it comes to training, there are two really important things to mention. Also the Celonis role concept. So on the one hand side, you really need to have good analysts, good people who are able to create web front ends. It's not a complex thing to learn, and Celonis really works in a very, very easy way to create front end and dashboard things. It is really like a business analyst level who can do that, which is like, I think, a 2 or 3 day training. And then the one more technical role is really then the so-called data scientist role or data engineer role, where you really need to have the technical skill set on the one hand side. How do we do the data transformation? So how do we get the event log and process flow information out of our raw data, which is really important to know how the concept is. So it's not also nothing complex, but it's important to get to know the skill. And then, which is another very important skill set you need, beside all the Celonis skills, is that you need to understand how your systems are working, which systems are you using in order to make a good visualization or a good presentation of your process. So on the one hand side, Celonis is offering a really good training training possibilities now with their free cloud training and also with their very good on-site training. And also, it is important just to have people either in your company or building up sales knowledge on simply how does SAP work or how do your systems work you're using as core systems. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. The next question, you hit on a lot of this, Jan Fjord, so I'm going to go back to Jan Philip to kind of expand this a bit more. Colin is asking about the steps of getting data into a process mining tool when your organization has disparate systems. So very much a mix of different ERPs, different releases, different legacy systems. So because you've probably seen that from the wider market perspective, and I know, JP, that you've been involved with a lot of organizations that have that type of ERP in multiple setups. Can you give some guidance on how people navigate that and what some of the tips and the way it works in those environments?
Yes, absolutely. And this is actually a very good question because if you think of end-to-end processes, quite often they actually involve multiple systems, right? I mean, it's, whether you start in a Salesforce system, then move on to an SAP system, or you have an OpenText solution combined with your SAP. You can look at Oracle solutions connected to that. And these are just examples, right? There's many, many more. So how to deal with that? And the answer is, I mean, in the end of the day, you don't want to leave out major parts of the process. So, for example, the way we approach it and what our technology provides is a integrated, let's say, data integration solution. It's called event collection. And what that allows you to do is for up to, I think, 75 different source systems, we have out-of-the-box connectors that will allow you to basically input some information on the system, and then it would basically so administrative information, and then will allow you to connect to that system, extract that data, and then also transform that data to get to this event log format. And then what you do is you can basically connect event logs with each other, right? So you could then, what you have to do is there has to be a unique identifier across those systems, right? So you need to be able to say this order in Salesforce turn into this sales order in SAP, just as an example. And with that, so you then have an end-to-end connection and can visualize that process flow. And it's not only about the visualization. I think it also gets very important when you look at the example of the action engine that Jan Fjord talked about. So the recommendations then given to people for local problems, right? So like prioritizing an invoice, they could actually have a sort of connection to, let's say, procurement, so strategic sourcing or procurement, or there could be a connection to other areas of the process, like of the shared services organization, like the master data team, etc. So I think it is important to think and that way and look at the process that way, to bring in the different data from different systems to organize that business data from an end-to-end perspective. And I think that is the right approach. And at the same time, I'd also recommend to start with the most important ones, right? So focus on the ERP or the largest part of the process, and then start building on top of that, right? Because if the first project is I need to connect 20 systems, you can imagine that's a long project. So what I can recommend based on the many customer projects I've seen is focus on the big ones. Like let's say that's the ERP, for example, or the CRM, and then start building on top of that, because there is a lot of let's say low-hanging fruits already within those systems, right? So that's my recommendation of how to approach it. Technically, again, there's connectors out of the box available, and also for legacy systems or systems, so like small homegrown systems, as long as there's a way to get to that underlying data, so a database connector we have is available as well, that's fine too, right? So at the end of the day, as long as you have data that is being stored, that is being tracked, that's the only prerequisite really. So yeah, great question.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that question, Colin. That was, I think, useful for many people. Jan Fjord, we're back to you with the next question. The question is, can you discuss the reaction from your internal or any compliance auditors to use of this tool? Was there resistance, or did they find that the deeper transparency was really valuable in auditing roles?
Okay, so basically, I see the value add also, of course, for a internal audit or compliance topic. Frankly speaking, I try to avoid it a little because I want to get the process improvement more coming like from a bottom up initiative, like where people working on the process really see that if they change something in their working behavior, they have an impact on the overall process, and are just that really also every single action they are doing matters in the overall process performance, rather than having an internal audit or compliance running through the company and chasing people to do a different behavior. But basically, yeah, they are really eager and wanting to also make use of the tool and of the data we're having in there, because it's making their life also much easier. And I think in some cases it will make sense, and we will make and develop use cases together with them, especially when it comes to fraud detection, or for instance, for ICE principle and segregation of duties which have not been followed. I think that really makes sense to get internal audit and compliance involved.
All right, thank you. The next question kind of feeds a little bit from that. The question is, did you have any stakeholders that you work with that were resistant to the use of this tool? And if so, was it just because of lack of education, or did they have any other concerns?
So in terms of stakeholder, there are, of course, a lot of stakeholders you're having in your company, which is starting from, that's what I said, like a lot of people are involved in your process in the end, right? You have the accountants working on the process actively, then you have team leads, shared service center leads, which are having the interest in a good performance of their process. Then you have global business service leaders, which are wanting to have an efficient process, a cost-efficient process, let's say for cash discount, they realizing as much as cash discount as possible, always depending on your most important stakeholder, which might be then your chief financial officer, who in the end will set the target for your finance processes and tells you what is an efficient process and where you should follow. So of course your CFO will never use a Celonis dashboard and analyze it, so he cannot resist in using it. But from our perspective, I can start from top down, saying that our CFO is really recognizing and realizing the work we're doing with Celonis process mining, in terms of he sees that the insights we're getting out of that tool are really a new level of information and really help us to improve processes. And so from top level, no resistance. Also from like everyone who is on a accounting and team leading level is not resisting to the tool itself. It's more than like raising concerns of data correctness or not, but it's basically a good concern. If people have concerns about data, it's a good starting point to get them on board and to verify the data with them. And it's not more, it's just like you need to get the momentum where people realize it's not just another tool we're going to introduce. It's more like you need to make it a tool people really want to have to improve their process, and that they see the value add on any level within your company of the information you can achieve with process mining.
All right. Well, I think you've got us all very excited about joining the process movement. But unfortunately, it means we do have to end at this time because we're out of time. So, Jan Fjord and Jan Philip, I wanted to thank you both. This was a perfect blend of giving us a wider perspective on the industry as a whole and a very good, specific example of how you've used this with some tremendous results. So I greatly appreciate that. It's always so much more relevant when we can find how it's actually been applied and the way that it works in the real world when I like to say it that way. So we hope that you will all join the process movement by applying this information. And on that note, I wanted to share a few things with you. First of all, to let you know that tomorrow you're going to be receiving a link with the recording to this session and all the sessions in the conference. From there, because a lot of you were asking questions when it was raised about the SNAP offering and also the training offering, so I'm going to go ahead and add some links in there so that you'll be able to get right to that information. So you can access those links and access the recording, and you'll be able to get to those links. So please do take the opportunity to do that. And as I mentioned, be sure to continue the collaboration going. You see Jan Philip's contact information here at the bottom of the screen. We do enjoy hearing from you, and we greatly appreciate all of the active participation from all of you who sent in questions. If any questions came up that we didn't address, please also remember that we'll have one more session, and then following that session will be our chairman's summary and fireside chat. So we'll be taking questions in that session as well. So join us there. We are carrying over a few questions from some other sessions that we didn't get to all the questions, so please join us for that. Next on the agenda, coming up at the bottom half of the hour, is how to create a sustainable improvement culture. So I hope that you'll join us from there. We have Ewan from Voya Financial who's going to be leading that discussion. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to close out the day with a fireside chat between Jan Philip and myself about everything that we have learned the last 2 days, giving a summary of that and a perspective, a more strategic, wider perspective about what's going on with process mining and intelligence as a whole. So we hope to see you back there. And if not, we do hope that you'll listen to the on-demand recording and use a lot of the resources to share with your teams and your industry peers to keep this process movement going. On that note, thanks to both of our Jans, Jan Fjord and Jan Philip. Thank you for your time today. Thank you to those of you listening to live. Especially thank you to those of you listening to the on-demand recording. We'll see you in the next session. Good day to all. And this now concludes today's webinar session. Thank you.